The GMTK Game Jam for 2020 began on the 10th of July. At the time of writing this script, 5,306 games were submitted, and this video is about one in particular, Living Labyrinth. Before that, however, I'd like to thank the sponsor of this video, Core. Core is an exciting new game development platform. Keep watching for more information on that later in the video. Having been out with friends earlier in the evening, I got home with 5 minutes to go until the start of the jam. Made my way upstairs to my computer to watch the live stream, just in time for the theme announcement.
This year, for 2020, the theme is Out of Control.
I was a little thrown by this theme at first, not gonna lie. Last year's only one was super open and this felt a bit more restrictive. Nonetheless, I got to work brainstorming some ideas. An hour or so in, I still wasn't entirely sure what I'd make, and decided to go join my friends again at the pub. It was there I had my first idea. I got home, sketched out my plan for the game, and created Drunk Game GMTK 2020 in Unity. Started grabbing some ideas for visuals from Pinterest before getting to bed, ready to start work on my pretty questionable idea the next morning. I awoke to the realization that Drunk Game GMTK 2020 just wasn't going to cut it. As everyone knows, the shower is where every smart idea happens, and that's where I realized where I was going wrong. I set my computer up, planned out my new idea, and started work on the game I would eventually complete. I started by drawing out the basic tiles which would make up the level area. The concept is the player has no control over the main character. Instead, they must rearrange parts of a labyrinth to guide the moving character to the goal. I created a circle to represent the character and the goal before slicing the sprites and naming them in Unity. I added a grid to the scene to keep everything tidy and laid out the 16 tiles the player would be able to rearrange. In order for that all to work, of course, I had to make some scripts, starting firstly with the scripts to control tiles and define how the tiles would behave. I wrote a bunch of tile templates, 11 different variations in total, before getting to work on coding the level grid. Each arrow button you see here will either shift a row or column up or down, depending on which arrow you click. These buttons use colliders rather than the Unity UI system, just so they can easily line up with the level scene. I got that working, detecting each click, and not long after that, shifting rows in a predefined level. Representing the level as an array in the background makes it super easy to move tiles around, with each sprite in the scene changing to represent the current layout. Next, the character had to move around the level autonomously, which is crucial to the game actually matching the jam theme. I created a script to control the character and set a start position for levels. Here, the movement timer ticks once per second, but the character doesn't move yet. At that point, it was about 18 hours into the jam. 30 hours left, so I took a short break to have some lunch and watched Thin Matrix's new video before soon getting back to work on character movement. The character starts at the start position and moves once per second to the next clear tile, only moving backwards on special dead-end tiles. It will also react to tiles being moved around. The problem though is that some tiles should be locked, such as the tile the character is currently on. I added a boolean value to lock tiles in the level config, which worked pretty well the first time around. The tile in the bottom left here is locked, so the row and column it occupies can't move. Finally, each level needs to have a goal. So I added a finishing tile and finishing position variable to the level config before creating a new game object to represent goals in the game. While I was at it, I added a placeholder reset button just so the functionality is there. I assigned the reset event to that button and set up a level for testing. Levels are just scriptable objects that can be outlined as a series of drop-down boxes. Sick of the boring white placeholder art, I thought it was probably about time to think about making the game actually look good. I knew I wanted to make the game with a limited palette of colours and eventually settled on a pink and green colour scheme. 3 colours in total, a dark and medium green and a bright pink. I animated the trophy first before moving on to designing the tiles. Each tile here is 24 by 24 pixels with 9 segments of 8 by 8. This means very little space for detail and a pretty retro aesthetic. Limited palettes and resolutions are a well-known way to really push your pixel art skills, which I certainly discovered. I went through a bunch of miserable designs for the tiles before finally arriving at one I liked. With all of the new tiles drawn, I imported them into Unity and tested them with the level. It looked good, but all the small details made it quite hard to make out the paths. I removed all the individual pixels in the drawings to try and help the readability of the levels before trying out tile outlines. It's pretty safe to say they looked absolutely terrible, so I quickly removed them and decided to draw some control arrows instead. I then set up the trophy animation I made earlier in the day, and the result at about 11 PM on Saturday night was this. I always like to have the gameplay down by the end of day 1 so I can spend day 2 polishing and bug fixing. Alright, so last day of the jam. I spent a load of time just drawing level designs on paper, trying to think how each tile will move to reach a solution. I made 6 levels in total, but I think this concept has room for a lot more. I then drew some graphics for the level count displayed nice and large like a fraction in the corner of the screen. I set up the level counter in Unity, created a script, and added all the numbers for the counter to use. With some animations added, this is how the level counter looks when completing a level. Next up, the reset button got the first of many redesigns before I started work on audio for the game. It was 1 PM on Sunday and I had just 7 hours left. I set up audio sources for the level scene and explored some sound effect libraries I've collected over time. With 5.5 hours left, I created an end screen. It counts all the levels you solved in the optimal number of turns, which I hope encourages completionists to replay the game. With just 3 hours left, I created a logo for the game, using the bold pink in an attempt to stand out, before getting that onto the game's main menu. With that final piece in place, the game just needed a page on itch.io. It took 4 attempts and a few bug fixes, but at 7:20 PM with just 40 minutes to go, the game was ready to be submitted. But before I show you the finished game, you guys often ask me how you can get involved with game development yourselves, so I'm excited to have partnered with Core for this video. Core is a brand new, completely free game creation platform powered by the Unreal Engine, supporting everything from building and publishing to playing other people's creations. Whether you have plenty of coding experience or none at all, this is an incredibly powerful set of tools which allows you to get started actually making games, regardless of experience. It's packed full of music, sound, and art assets which you can customize to your liking to create some truly stunning and varied environments. When you create a new project, you can start completely from scratch, select from a range of templates, or even remix other people's creations. The creators host a range of community events to get some inspiration from, including the current Secret Spaces Game Jam, with a pretty insane prize pool of $3,500. It's super easy to get started, and if you follow my link in the description, you can download Core and get started making games. So this is how Living Labyrinth plays. You can shift an entire row or column in the maze left or right, up or down. The aim is to gradually direct the explorer towards their goal. When a level is complete, everything shuffles around and the next level appears. The levels should, in theory, get progressively harder, and I've tried to make things as juicy and satisfying as possible. There's a link to the game for you to play in the description, and anyone can leave a rating for the game. It would be awesome to try and get top 100 again this year. If you are going to rate the game though, do leave an honest rating. The top patrons I'd like to thank for this video are Alex, Nico, Ekapivol, Sheshpesh, Pepe BNT, Pepper Trollman, Ethan Hart, Julian, Nova, Gecko, Cameron W, Hayden, Mr. Smith, Joshua, Chris Naismith, Logan, BD Smith, Warner M14 and Andrew. If you liked the video, do remember to subscribe and I shall see you next time. Cheers for watching.